Majin Buu is one of my favorite characters in all of Dragon Ball. The ways in which this beast of a being was hyped up in the narrative just to subvert the expectations of the viewer by being a pink blob, to then regain his status as an intimidating villain by decimating our main characters is just awesome. But this video isn't going to be an analysis of the plot of the Buu saga or why I think Buu is an incredible villain. Instead, this video is going to explain why I believe Majin Buu is one of the most broken characters in all of anime. This video is going to cover all of Buu's abilities, as shown in Dragon Ball Z, Super, and just a little bit of GT. I am mainly going to be talking about the 4 Buus as compared to Oob, but Oob will be mentioned a couple of times. The point here isn't to explain why I believe Buu can beat any character in fiction, as we obviously know that's not true, but more so to show why Buu pretty much can't be bested in an equal stats battle, given how powerful his sheer abilities are. Hence, the title of the video.
Hey guys, this is during editing Tough Man. I just sort of want to reiterate what this video is about. So this video is me going over all of Buu's abilities and explaining why they're incredibly versatile and really good in combat. It's not necessarily a full-blown power scaling video, it's more so just me going over what Buu is capable of and why I think if you were paired to a character that doesn't just outright outclass him in strength and speed, he would most likely win given how powerful his abilities are. I really want to do this with other Dragon Ball characters. I think obviously Goku would be a really fun one. Just sort of going through everything a character is capable of. But yeah, I don't think I made that super clear in the intro, so yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you
video. This analysis is also a bit more of a cross-reference between all Buus. I know that certain Buus have certain abilities, but I'm more so generalizing here. I will be referencing if there is a certain ability that comes from a certain Buu. Let's start with Buu's basic powers. These are the abilities that it seems Buu can just do by himself without the influence of others. After talking about all of these, we'll get into some of the more complex abilities of Buu that are specifically counters to other people. So right off the bat, we have to talk about Buu's foundational powers, those being the powers that most Dragon Ball characters already have. This includes the basic enhanced strength, durability, speed, but in regards to special abilities, Buu can fly, and he has ki blasts, which are projectile manifestations of his energy. Something worth noting here is that Buu in particular seems to have a level of ki manipulation beyond most other Dragon Ball characters. Although never explicitly stated, this is shown by the Assault Rain, where he simply lifts his arm in the air and accurately kills all remaining humans. Super Buu and Kid Buu, I think, can also sense ki. The reason why I say I think Kid Buu can is that although it's never explicitly stated, he did follow Goku and Co to the Supreme Kai planet, which is something I'm not sure he would have been able to do, like he wouldn't have known they were there, if he couldn't sense them. In regards to Buu's strength, we also see that he is so powerful that he is capable of blowing holes through realities with his voice, as shown by both Super Buu vs. Gotenks and Buuhan vs. Vegeta. Now, this could be chalked down to him just being that strong as a character, so I guess if we're taking him at like equal stats of someone else, maybe this wouldn't matter, but if you want to call it a particular ability, I'm not going to stop you. Moving on to our first Buu-specific ability is something that makes Buu a fun character to watch: his complete control over his body. He's capable of stretching and morphing into different shapes and sizes. This can be as simple as stretching his limbs to as complex as changing his facial features. We see that this gives him some unique advantages in combat, as we see Kid Buu follow Goku with his feet to have a fist-to-cuffs fight with him from far away. The most horrifying way this is used is when Super Buu manages to stretch and fly into another person's body and make them blow up from the inside out. We see him do this to one of the bandits who shot B. But in the Z anime, we also see him attempt to do this to Super Vegeta as he goes inside of his body. However, he ultimately fails because Vegeta is just that Chadley. So now let's discuss Buu's defensive abilities. Along with his bodily control is our next ability, which is probably the most well-known and strongest ability of Buu: his regeneration. This level of regeneration is so powerful that Buu manages to live from wounds such as being bisected, getting holes blown through his torso, or even getting his head blown off. Buu can even regenerate from near complete annihilation, as we see Fat Buu reassemble himself after Majin Vegeta blows himself up. Super Buu recovers from chunks of him being annihilated into smoke from Gotenks, and Kid Buu recovered from blowing up the earth. What's important to mention is that this does not require any effort, as Goku states that his ki just doesn't go down after regenerating. This means that not only does he have stronger regenerative capabilities than Piccolo or Cell from previous sagas, but there's also literally no drawback to this. Although this is never explicitly stated, this could be because Buu just has infinite energy, as he never seems to get tired in Z. But it's also possible that Super just retcons that, as we know, Buu loves to sleep. Buu also has the ability to heal other people as long as they aren't dead. Similarly to his own regeneration, the limits on this seem to be virtually non-existent, as within Super, we see him fully heal both Goku and Vegeta. He can also heal what seem to be permanent ailments, as we see him heal the little boy of his blindness. Something else that's important to mention are the certain types of attacks or techniques he is immune to. Now, this is mostly seen after the Buu saga, but we see that within the Moro arc that Buu is just downright immune to Moro's magical abilities. This includes his planet attack as well as his absorption of Buu's power, the latter of which is another important thing to point out if you think Buu has infinite energy. Similarly, when looking at GT, we see that he is immune to things that would normally affect one's bloodstream, as he is immune to baby's parasites. One of the final things to mention about Buu's innate defensive capabilities is the power to control parts of himself that are detached. An example of this is after Goku bisects Buu tanks, the lower half of his body just gets up and kicks Ten Shinhan down. The extent of this is pretty massive, as we see him change the shape and size of those bits that are detached. In the Moro arc, we see him completely separate the fists he makes from his body so he can move around while continuing to pummel the goat. One of my favorite examples of this, however, is the way he recovers from Majin Vegeta's final explosion. After Vegeta kills himself, the bits of Buu that remain just turn into a bunch of little Buus and jump together to reform the one big Buu. It's also important to add that it's this control that allows him to absorb other people. Another lesser known power in Buu's arsenal is his telekinesis. We see that he's capable of lifting people in the air and objects at his whim. So now we're at what's debatably Buu's most known ability, his transmutation. Now, by transmutation, I'm referring to Buu's ability to change other people into innate objects or food. We most often see him do this when he turns people into chocolate or snacks, but he also does this when he makes his cool little clay house. Something else I need to mention is that the funniest example of this is when Buuhan made a porta potty while Goku and Vegeta were inside of him. It seems that Buu does this by creating a beam that comes out of the fin on the top of his head. This fin also allows him to smell things. Not important at all, but since Buu doesn't have a nose and we know where he smells or how he smells, I thought I would put it here. Just think it's kind of funny. Upon making contact with the target, though, it/they turn into the desired object. Now, this is one of the few abilities of Buu that has a weakness, as we see Evil Buu was capable of blowing away the candy beam back at Fat Buu. The other one is that although once transmuted, the target is usually helpless, we see that the GOAT, Vegeta, was capable of just tanking this attack on and still fighting even as a jawbreaker. This means that the effectiveness of this attack is dependent on whether or not the target is comparable to Buu in strength. The final thing to mention about the candy beam is that in Dragon Ball GT, it shows us that Oob seems to have a more powerful version of the ability, as he was able of reversing it on himself when Baby blows the attack back at him, something that we know Fat Buu could not do, or at the very least, Fat Buu didn't do it quick enough. The final thing to mention for Buu's basic powers is his immense potential. Now, this is primarily seen within Dragon Ball Super, but there are two instances, one from each continuity, of Buu's power growing immensely. In the Super anime, we see him best base Goku after training and getting jacked, which was after the fight he had with Basil in the Zeno exhibition match. Now, him besting base Goku here, even if it was just a ring out, means that Buu literally got like infinitely times stronger, like from a day of training, like Buu Saga to Super base Goku, like that gap there is like unfathomable. This interaction shows that even Fat Buu has a level of martial strategy when it comes to fighting as well, as we know that Buu was able to outsmart Goku into getting him a ring out. Now moving on, the Super manga shows Buu fighting Moro, and it gets revealed that he got a power amp after unlocking some latent memories from the Grand Supreme Kai. The point of highlighting this is that it's possible for Buu to get stronger, as his strength never really plateaued from the Buu Saga. Next up, we're going to talk about some abilities from Buu that are still innately his, but involve interference with others, or were given to him after his initial appearance due to his interaction with the Z-Fighters. By this, I mean these abilities can only be used/activated upon interacting with another individual. The first of these two abilities is Buu's copycat ability. By that, I'm referring to the fact that within the Buu Saga, Buu can instantly learn any technique just by looking at it. Now, there's the meme of him using Vegeta's technique, but he also learns the Kamehameha instantaneously after getting hit by it. The most impressive example of this is that when Kid Buu watches Kibito Kai use his version of instant teleportation, just to immediately follow them, at least in the manga. In the anime, Kid Buu gets up to some funny stuff. Now, an important question is, can he use someone else's innate abilities? By that I mean, can he do stuff that is innate to other people, like going Super Saiyan, or a transformation akin to Frieza's? I'm going to say probably not, but there's nothing saying that he couldn't. Something that gets Buu around this copycat limitation is his absorption ability. This is the final ability we'll be talking about, and it's Buu's ace in the hole, that he only uses when backed in a corner. He does this technique once a part of his body has been cut off or removed. Buu then controls this part of the body and turns it into some sort of sheet that then envelops the target. After this, Buu returns the severed part to his body, and the person is absorbed. The only exception to this is Z Filler, where Kid Buu decides to completely envelop himself around Grand Supreme Kai. Whoever is the strongest person absorbed by Buu is the clothing/appearance Buu will take, as seen by the Kais in the Z Fighters. By that I mean, we know that the strongest fighter is what Super Buu looks like. He has Gotenks, then Piccolo, then Gohan's clothes, and Fat Buu looks like the Grand Supreme Kai because the Grand Supreme Kai was the strongest fighter that Buu absorbed. Now, the point of the absorption is twofold. One, it gets rid of the target. They're essentially dead, as they can no longer fight Buu if it all goes well. The second one is that the person's strength, intellect, and abilities are added to Buu's. In total, we see Buu absorb 7 people. Technically 9 if we count Vegeta and Gotenks as 2 separate people. Chronologically, the first people Buu absorbs are the South Supreme Kai, making Buff Buu, and Grand Supreme Kai, making him Fat Buu. Upon being absorbed, the Grand Supreme Kai ended up actually pacifying the chaos of Kid Buu, which is why Fat Buu was such a jolly guy. Then we see Evil Buu eat Fat Buu, turning him into Super Buu. This is the only instance of a different way to absorb someone. Super Buu then absorbs Super Gotenks and Piccolo, making Buu-Tanks, is what I like to call them. This is important here, as we see that the features of Gotenks, being the power of Super Saiyan 3 and the fusion time limit, still apply to Buu's power, as we see that Buu-Tanks is also on a limited timescale. Furthermore, we see that Buu is then able to plan and articulate things better after absorbing Piccolo. After defusing, we see that Buu take on Piccolo's clothing, being Buccolo, where he finally absorbs Gohan, making him the strongest Majin, Buuhan. The final person Buu attempts to absorb is Vegeta, but Vegeta manages to counter this, and Goku and Vegeta end up infiltrating Buu's body to get the others out. Vegeta manages to counter this by creating a force field around himself via his energy. It's hard to say what other abilities could be potential counters to this. Upon defusing, Goku and Vegeta find the others trapped inside of Buu. They seem to be trapped in a weird cocoon tendril thing and can be detached from Buu's body. Upon doing this, Buu loses the powers of the person trapped and absorbed. We then essentially see Buu devolve as Goku and Vegeta remove the Z Fighters, and finally, Fat Buu. Although this is the case, Buu can even interfere with this process, and appears as a personification of himself within his own body. It does seem that when he does this, he can't divert his attentions to others on the outside. Now, this was in the manga and the anime, and this might be in contradiction to Buu creating a bunch of little Buus, but let me know what you guys think about that. It could just be that Super Buu didn't recognize Hercule and Dende as a threat, thus he wasn't even cognizant of them being around. The final ability I want to go over is what happens when Oob and Buu become one. Upon doing this, it seems that Oob can use Buu's transmutation as he turns people into chocolate. Oob can even undo it on himself, unlike Fat Buu in the Buu saga. Although this is the case, we don't see if he has similar regenerative abilities, but even still, before fusing with Buu though, we find out that Oob is also immune to baby's eggs, so maybe it's possible he has similar resistances. So with all that being said, how do you beat Buu? Well, it's quite simple. You just have to be stronger than him. Like, a lot stronger than him. Like, the entire goal of the Buu saga from our heroes' perspectives is to generate a being or a form or an attack that's powerful enough to take out Buu once and for all. We see that this progresses from Majin Vegeta, Super Saiyan 3 Goku, to Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, to Ultimate Gohan, to Super Vegito, and finally, the Super Spirit Bomb. Of these 6 attempts to kill Buu, only 2 of them were capable of actually doing so. Other than that, I'm not too sure there is a way to defeat Buu. Taking personality out of the equation, of course, as it's obvious someone could probably outsmart Fat Buu and make him have an aneurysm or something. Within Dragon Ball itself, I really can't think of a character who has more powerful abilities that don't just directly correlate with absolute strength and power, excluding the angels from Super. I think an interesting interaction that we'll never see is how Buu would respond to other Ace-Sonal abilities like the Mafuba or Ginyu's Body Swap. Do you guys think that Buu could probably just instantly reverse the evil containment wave, or would the Body Swap even work on him? It's tough to say, I don't know. Before I conclude this video, I gotta squeeze in some implications and narrative analysis of these powers. In the Buu saga, the final saga of Z ends with one Buu dying and one Buu surviving. That Buu being Fat Buu, who has most of the abilities that were listed before. Now, I believe that this decision was made without the consideration for a future Dragon Ball series in mind. This is because in both Super and GT, Buu plays an incredibly minor role in the grander narrative. In the Super anime, he's written out of every arc, with him getting one shot in Battle of Gods to sleeping in Resurrection F, to failing a test, to being entirely absent, and then once again falling asleep, it's clear that Toei really didn't want this guy to get involved and really didn't know how to handle Buu. Now in the Super manga, Buu is imperative in the best arc of Super, and within that story, he's great. Go read the Moro Saga. It's really good. I love it. Meanwhile, in GT, they have him fused with Oob in the Baby Saga, creating Majub and permanently getting rid of Buu for the rest of the story. Obviously, the two stories are completely disconnected, but a weird place where Super and GT intersect are their treatment of the pink blob. Why is that? Well, it's simple. Buu is just too powerful. His abilities are so overarching and have a counter for almost any circumstance that it literally became a matter of, well, if he's here, then the threat is pretty much null and void. How is any antagonist a threat if this character, who can pretty much never die, instantly pacify the target, and even if he can't kill the enemy, can heal those who can indefinitely? How do you create a threat who has a counter to all of Buu's abilities? The answer is simple. You can't. They couldn't. So they didn't. They went with the easier route of just writing him out of every story. And I must say, GT does a much more creative job than the Super anime, but I can't really blame either series for doing this, as once again, it's clear that Buu sticking around was not going to happen, or at least I don't think it was going to happen, if Toriyama decided to keep Dragon Ball Z going. If he knew that there were going to be more stories told in this verse, he probably would have had Buu killed off, which if anything, I think sort of speaks to the brilliance of Buu as the final antagonist of Dragon Ball Z. He's the ultimate antagonist with all the ultimate abilities that all the characters have, and then of course with him being taken care of, the series couldn't really get much higher than that, you know? But I said I wasn't going to hyperanalyze the Buu saga. I'll do that another day. And we're done with this video. That's all of Buu's abilities. I hope you guys enjoyed. I want to issue a bit of a challenge in the comments though. That being, I want you guys to explain or offer characters who you think can beat Buu in an equal stats fight. Essentially, I'm asking for characters who beat Buu solely based on the two characters' abilities. I'm interested to see what you guys come up with. I just finished reading and getting caught up with JJK, so I would love to hear some Jujutsu Kaisen characters, but I'll leave that to you guys, and we'll see what debates we get in the comments below. Besides that, I also want to say thanks for tuning in, and thank you for all the success on the Beerus video. The reception on that was great, and I love the conversations we got going, and I couldn't be more thankful for all of you guys. Go check it out if you haven't already. But with that, I'm out of here. Have a great day, everyone.